Hi, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mateo Chavez Lewis, and welcome back to Music Theater Theory. Recently, I've explored a lot of complicated music theory topics on this channel. Modulations, inversions, deceptive cadences, just to name a few. I was having coffee with a friend the other day, and they asked me how I apply these techniques to my own writing. And I thought that might be a great topic for a video. So, today I'm doing something I've never done before on this channel. I'm going to do an analysis of one of my own songs, specifically Light On in the Window from Quarantine Songs. I released a music video of sorts for this song back in December of 2020, and Quarantine Songs, I'm very excited to say, is going to make its on-stage premiere in Toronto this June. So next week, if you're watching this video right when it comes out, at the Attic Studio in Toronto. You can get tickets for that at the link in the description below. So I kind of thought this was the perfect song to explore, not only because, you know, the timing feels right, but also it happens to be my favorite song I've ever written. There's so much of my heart in this song, and I'm so excited to share it with you in this level of detail. So grab yourself a cup of tea and let's get started. Delicious. There's a light on in the window. There's a sprinkler on the lawn. There's a car parked in the driveway. On occasion, though, it's gone. There's a trash can on the curbside, piled high with styrofoam. So though you can't see them right now, you know somebody's home. I wrote this song at the height of the pandemic in Ontario. There were 4,000 or 5,000 cases a day in the province. Nobody was vaccinated yet, so it was like extreme shutdown mode across the whole city. And I remember feeling so isolated and alone, because I got through the first shutdown. It was hard, but I got through it. But then it was when everything shut down again, for a second time in the fall. That's what really got me, because I didn't know if I could get through it again. So it was a really dark time in my life. And I remember I went out for a walk one night during that second wave, just feeling completely hopeless and completely broken. And I stopped because I saw through a window there was a family eating dinner together around a table, and I realized I'm isolated right now, but they are too, and so are they, and so are they, and everyone is. I feel like I'm suffering alone because I'm isolated in this way, but I'm not suffering alone. We're all in this together. Every human being on on the planet pretty much is in the same place as I am right now. We're all struggling through this pandemic, and that thought gave me a lot of hope. So I wanted to write a song about that, to share that with the world. It started with that image of the light on in the window, and then I started brainstorming other images that you can see, on the outside of a house, which give you evidence of the life that's going on inside. And then for this melody, I wanted to communicate that emotion I was feeling, that yearning for human connection. And to me, there's something about these two notes. The last two notes of the major scale, Ti-Do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, Ti-Do, Ti-Do. There's something about those two notes that is so yearning to me. Maybe because that Ti just really wants to reach for that Do. So I use that Ti-Do on in the window. And then everything else just kind of fell into place. And then in that second phrase there's a trash can on the curbside. I use two chords here which kind of pop out of the key of the song. The first one is a major 2 chord, which has a sharp 4 in it. Because usually in a major scale, the 4 would be natural, and so the 2 chord would be minor. Like that. But this 2 chord is major and this 4 is sharp, so it's just a little bit brighter, a little bit more hopeful than you expect. And then the other chord that I use in this section that is outside of the key signature is this flat 6 chord. And this is the exact opposite. I mean, usually it's a natural sixth. So when it's a flat sixth instead, it's lower than you expect, it's darker than you expect. And so between these two chords, you kind of get this back and forth between hope and then despair. Oh look, there's someone right there, but I can't talk to them because of COVID. In general, adding notes and chords that are outside of the key signature, I think that's a really helpful tool for songwriters because it just lets you paint the phrase with more complex colors. There's a chair out on the porch side. There's a half-full glass of beer. Someone's watering those flowers you see. Someone planted them early this year. As I was brainstorming these images, I kept coming up with ones that were like season specific. You know, like the chair out on the porch side. No one's sitting out in the porch in winter. That's got to be a summer image. But then like in the last verse, there's a paper bag full of fallen leaves. And that isn't a summer image, obviously. That's got to be either like a winter image or maybe even an autumn image. And so when I was looking at this list of images that I'd kind of brainstormed, I was like, how am I going to make these all fit together? And then I was like, wait. What if I separate it by verse? Like the first verse is spring, the second verse is summer, and so on. And so that's where the idea for this structure came from. The first verse is spring, you know, there's a sprinkler on the lawn. And then the second verse is summer, with the flowers that are growing and the beer left out on the porch side. The third verse you'll see is going to be autumn themed, and then the final verse is going to be winter. But I realized that this structure kind of serves a narrative purpose too. When I was writing this song, it had been just under a year since the pandemic had started. So we had already experienced all 4 seasons in this post-pandemic world. And I realized, oh, wow, this structure, like rotating through the seasons like this kind of perfectly captures the heartache and the hopelessness that I've been feeling this entire year. This pandemic feels never ending. That's why it feels so hopeless to me right now. And so what better way to show the never endingness of it, to make the audience feel that? What better way to do that than to rotate through all 4 seasons and to have this song tell the story of the full year. And so that idea became not only the structure of the song, but it also kind of became the emotional content of the bridge section, which we'll get to in a bit. And it all came from this mistake, really, that I made when I was brainstorming images for my first verse. Like, totally random. And that's the thing with the creative process for me. There's this myth that creative people just sit there and think and think and think, and then all of a sudden, poof, oh, they come up with just the perfect idea and they write it down. And it works like a charm, and they never have to think about it again. In my experience, it doesn't work like that. I don't know, maybe I'm just a hack. But I think my best ideas come from kind of a combination of serendipity and coincidence. Like here, you know, I happen to be brainstorming a completely unrelated list of images, and I realized a flaw, literally a bad thing, a mistake in my thought process, which was that these images would never have been able to be seen all at the same time. So I tried to find a workaround for purely practical reasons, but then I found out that workaround I came up with just so happened to have this kind of really powerful, emotional double meaning. So, my advice to people who are writing songs for the first time has always been, don't feel like you have to pull brilliant songs out of your brain out of nowhere. That's not how it works. Just find what moves you. Find the combination of notes, words, chords, and images that make you feel emotionally affected. And then just write that down. Chances are, you know, if it moves you, it's gonna move somebody else. And this structure for the song, the kind of rotation through the 4 seasons, that really moved me when I first began kind of exploring it. So I wrote it down, and here we are. So if some nights you get lonely, shut inside your catacomb, look across the street at my house and know somebody's home. I really wanted to rhyme that word, home, on the final line, because when a word is part of a rhyme, it becomes so much more emphasized. The problem is, there aren't that many options to rhyme with home, especially if you want to use a perfect rhyme. If you don't know the difference between a perfect and imperfect rhyme, you can click up here. I have a whole video about it. So I was brainstorming ideas for words that rhyme with home. There's foam, So in the first verse, I use styrofoam. Roam, if you want to be cliche, you know, wherever I may roam. But nobody actually talks like that, at least not anymore. Tome, like a big, thick book, like T-O-M-E, tome. That's an option. And then there's catacomb, which is a very melodramatic word. But like melodramatic words can work if you throw them in kind of playfully, you know? Oh, your catacomb. Oh. So that's kind of the energy that I use that word with. Everybody needs to have a sense of humor, you know? When the sun starts setting early and the street gets dark and cold, in that misty silver landscape, there's a tiny spark of gold. I know right now things are scary. It's so hard to just get through. But look across the street at my house and know that I'm here too. And here we go into the bridge. There's a very common song structure that us songwriters call AABA, which basically means that there are 2 repetitions of the main theme, so that's called the A section. So 2 A's. The first A section establishes the theme. The second A section kind of reinforces and deepens the theme. Then there's a B section, which is different. So the B section should provide contrast musically from those A sections. If the A sections are in a minor key, for example, a lot of composers will then write their B section in a major key to provide that contrast. So that's just one example, but something like that, some form of musical contrast. And in addition, the B section should also provide contrast intellectually to the A section. The lyrics of the B section should serve as like a counter-argument, kind of, to the thoughts and ideas that are presented in the A sections. So that then the final A section can come back, but this time with like an added meaning, because it's got this extra context of the B section. So, A section establishes the theme, second A section reinforces and deepens the theme, B section provides contrast or a counter-argument, and then the final A section comes to a conclusion, kind of summing it all up with a nice little bow, or not, depending on what you want to say at the end. So this structure is especially useful in musical theater, where we see characters grappling with thoughts and conflicts in real time over the course of a song. So like, for example, if in the A section, the character is trying to hide a secret, for example, then maybe the B section is where that secret comes out. So for example, that's your daddy's son in Ragtime. The A sections are all, Daddy played piano, played it very well, however it goes. But then the B section is where she goes, I buried my heart in the ground when I buried you in the ground. And that's the first time we find out that she's the one who buried the baby. But that's just one example. There are other examples too, like if in the A section the character is talking about how badly they want something, maybe the B section is the moment we get to find out why they want it. Or maybe the moment where we get to find out what happens if they don't get it. And maybe that only serves to reinforce how badly they want it, so that when the A section comes back and they get to sing about how badly they want it again, it's 10 times more desperate and urgent because of having gone through the B section first. And that's like Waving Through a Window from Dear Evan Hansen. Side note, I know I talk about Waving Through a Window in basically every video, but that's partially because Dear Evan Hansen holds a very special place in my heart, and it's also partially because Waving Through a Window is like so perfectly formulaic. Like it fits this verse, chorus, bridge, chorus structure to a T. That traditional like pop song structure, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, is basically an expanded AABA, where the verse and chorus together function as the A section, and then the bridge functions as the B section. Anyways, those are just 2 examples. But the AABA form is everywhere in musical theater, so drop your favorite examples in the comments below. This song, Light On in the Window, is kind of an AAABA song, like 4 A sections instead of 3, so 1 A section for each season. So when I was writing it, I knew that this B section had to provide some contrast to all of those A sections. So I tried to do that in 2 ways, musically and emotionally. Musically, we've been in a major key this whole time. We started in D major, and then we moved to E flat major when autumn came along. Now, here we are in E flat minor. Ooh, spooky. And this matches up with the contrast in thought between the A section and the B section, or the contrast in feeling, because the A section was always very hopeful. You know, here's all the proof that we're in this together. There's the sprinkler on the lawn, the car parked in the driveway, somebody's home, if you get lonely, remember that I'm here too, etc., etc. All that very hopeful stuff. But listen to how these words in the bridge section contrast that. The months go by, the seasons change, and still it's scary, and still it's strange. We're all so lonely, we're all so lost. This is the first time where I allow this character to say, hey, yeah, things look pretty effing hopeless. We're all so lonely. We're all so lost. And he has this like screaming high note of like desperation and agony. But then we do transition back to a major key on the tail end of this bridge here. And we end on this very hopeful idea. When your light won't shine, you can borrow some of mine. But if and when your light won't shine, you can borrow some of mine. I have to be honest, I cried when I wrote that down because I just meant it so deeply from the heart. And again, this character, whoever he is, I mean, he's basically me, but he's also not. He's a character. This character is once again taking the pain and the fear that he's feeling and turning it into hope and light. I guess this character is the version of me that I wish I could be. Because I think we should all work harder to turn our own pain and fear into hope and light for others, instead of turning it into more pain and fear. But I, like all of you, sometimes succumb to the pain and the fear. So this character is not me, but this character is like a shining beacon of who I want to be, even though I'm not always able to be him, unfortunately. But hopefully this song can inspire some of you to be a little bit more like this version of ourselves, who does spread the hope and spread the light, even when he's feeling so much pain and suffering and fear and agony and all that scary stuff. Because I think that's really, really important right now. Paper bags packed full of yard waste line the footprints in the snow. Someone raked up those leaves as they fell to the ground. We're all just waiting for new leaves to grow. There's a metaphor there. I don't know if you caught it, but there's something about like the world is like a tree that's lost some of its leaves in this global crisis, and we're all kind of waiting for the new world to grow, for the leaves to grow back, you know, newer and stronger. I don't know. There's some sort of metaphor there. But if one night, while you're waiting, you start to feel like you're alone, just look across the street at my house and know somebody's home. So this is the one place that I succumbed to using an imperfect rhyme for home. I just really wanted the emphasis to be on those two words, alone and home. I think that kind of sums up the journey of the whole song. When you feel like you're alone, remember somebody's home. So I felt like that rhyme, even though it was imperfect, you know, own and home are not exact rhymes, I felt like it was fine because of the words I was using and the meaning that they had. Also, I kind of felt like after having used perfect rhymes in the first three A sections, I used foam and home, then I used catacomb and home, and then I used hard to get through, I'm here too. And so after all those perfect rhymes in this section, I felt like an imperfect rhyme was kind of a nice surprise to the ear, to keep it fresh and new, even after you've heard the same kind of verse sung already 3 times. I also want to point out this chord on and no, because usually this melody has gone down to the 5th note of the scale. Look across the street at my house and know, there's that 5th note, and know that I'm here too. But here I go to the flat 6th instead. Look across the street at my house and know. flat sixth. Now that flat sixth is famously a note with a lot of tension, and depending on the context, it can either be very scary or very sad. In this context, it feels really sad to me. It feels like it has a lot of yearning in it. But I don't know, it also has a lot of hope. And that's kind of the note I wanted to end on. And listen to this outro as well. Here I use that sharp fourth again. Remember, like I was talking about in the first verse? So that's to give it more hope and more brightness than the T-do that I would usually use on that melodic phrase. Like it usually would be something like that. But remember, like I was saying, that sharp fourth is lighter than you expect, it's brighter, it's higher than you expect, so it gives you a lot of hope. And that's kind of the note I wanted to end on for this song, you know? Feeling a lot of hope for the future. Looking up. Looking forward to when we can come together again, instead of wallowing in pain and misery and loneliness. And I hope this song inspires, at least some of the people who listen to it, to take their own pain and fear and suffering and to turn it into light and hope for the future and for other people. I think we all really need that right now. So, there's a bit about my song, Light On in the Window. This song, as well as countless others, will be performed live in Toronto next week as part of the onstage premiere of Quarantine Songs. And the absolute best way you can support this channel and support me as a songwriter is to buy a ticket. The link is in the description. It's performed entirely by high school students. They are really the best of the best. Like seriously, you're gonna be seeing these kids on Mervish stages in a few years for ticket prices that are way more expensive, by the way. And if you want to support but you don't live in Toronto, there will be, hopefully, a recorded version of the show made available at some point in the future for like a pay what you can donation kind of thing. So hopefully that's gonna pan out. And for updates on that, as well as for my weekly like music and video recommendations, you can sign up for my mailing list at the link in the description. Otherwise, you can support the channel over at Patreon, or just by clicking subscribe and hitting the like button. That really helps a lot too. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, you can check out the full playlist of Quarantine Songs over here. And here is a video that YouTube thinks you might like. Thank you all so much for watching. Once again, my name is Mateo Chavez Lewis, and this has been Music Theater Theory. Oh.